You're on.
Okay. I'd like to call the work session for Tufton Borough Board of Selectmen to order. It's Friday, October 6th. We're here it's a work session to review Conservation Commission and transfer station budgets. Why don't we do Conservation first? Steve Wingate, come on down. You know everyone here, Steve?
Yep.
Why don't you begin? Welcome to downtown Tufton Borough. And but let me just say, having worked on your Conservation Commission, thank you for your leadership. You make a difference.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I would start by giving you kind of a rundown of things we've worked on this year, participated in. Can I do that?
Please.
Okay. We have a well-established well water testing. I'm guessing we had, you can't say for sure, you know, how many people each time are original versus people who retest, either because it's recommended or because they've taken some kind of measures, but I'm guessing we've processed probably 500 to 600 households, which is a big dent in Tufton Borough. Everybody in the commission has participated in the natural resources section of the master plan, and the majority of the members have put in a considerable amount of time in areas of their expertise, writing portions of that. We're in various phases of two small easements which are going to happen. They're small, but they're significant. And we're negotiating with two landowners at the moment for two larger donated easements, potential donated easements. We're working on the Great Meadows project all the time. Most recently meeting with Rick Vanderpool to come up with a strategy for two parcels that may be within our reach. We have participated in the Tufton Borough, or Wolfboro Tufton Borough Land Bank, and jointly worked on projects together. We pay for Lay Lakes monitoring for the processing of the samples, and several of our members are Lay Lakes monitors, which is a considerable amount of volunteer time to do that. We also recruit new monitors whenever we can. As you know, we've been working hard to get a watershed plan done, and it's actually going to happen. Have I reported on that recently?
Not that I recall.
All right.
Last I knew, you were waiting for something from the EPA.
DES has received the funding from EPA. They have approved our grant, and it just has to go through the Governor's Council.
Okay. You know when it's on, is it on the agenda for a GNC meeting yet?
I don't know that. I know it will be going on an agenda, and the estimate is it usually takes about 2 months. So my guess would be more like November or December, sometime when it actually gets on the agenda, but I don't know the workings of that.
And how much is the grant for?
Grants for $65,000. The town put up a $15,000 match, which from previous experience should pay for the watershed plan.
And that's for the whole town?
Yes. And it's more likely our $15,000 would be spent last.
It's good news.
Yeah. Karen, could I ask that you contact our executive counselor on this matter?
Sure.
We understand that it's going to be coming to the council, and it's obviously of great interest to the town of Tufton Borough, and anything he could do to move it along.
On the agenda?
Well, I have no idea how long it takes to get them on the agenda, or if a counselor can move it forward. But but the sooner they get started, the better in terms of doing that.
This will be a great photo opportunity. Joe Kenny.
I think I remember being told that these get lumped together.
Yeah,
There are a lot of other grants that are received from other federal agencies, and they kind of put it on one.
well, my thought is it doesn't hurt
Yeah,
to remind our council, or to make our council aware that this is something that we're particularly interested in
well, our guess
getting
is
through the process.
we probably kick something off in January. And the first thing is to establish a committee, which would also have representation from Moultonborough and Wolfboro, because there are small sections of both of those towns in the water pit. You remember, watershed boundaries aren't political. They work out real great for Tuftonboro, but they're not political. They're whatever the
Yeah,
physical.
geographical, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we have a structure for a support committee to your Conservation Commission in the Lang Pond Watershed Committee. And those people, Ben Ladd, have expressed an interest in being recruited, so.
And that's one of the things on the list. We've had several members on that group. And we also, we look at least 3 or 4 permits a month for DES, being their eyes and ears. We generally don't provide any kind of a quality judgment or recommendation. What we do is we look at the permit and we see if it's accurate, and if the all the things that they stated in the permit application is accurate for that piece of property.
But you generally make a site visit on these
Yeah.
things as well, not just
It's a
looking at the
site,
paper,
yeah.
right?
And that's a lot of time for the commissioners to put in, particularly if it's on an island. Typically, when we get them on an island in the winter, we don't actually make a site visit. But everything else, we always try to make a site visit.
So in the watershed plan, is it your expectation that's going to affect land usage, or is this, what's its purpose, I guess?
The purpose is to look at the watershed, see how it functions. And then the big thing is, once you understand how it functions, look at any water quality problems that are currently present. And I like to use the Lake Road boat launch as an example. Water comes off of the highway, drains off of the highway, and goes down into that parking area, then shoots into the lake. Very difficult problem to solve, but it's solvable. And then it might take some cooperation from the state on the road or something, but it's one of those things that's there, but because we go by it every day, we don't think about it. But this plan will notice places like that and say, here's something you can do if you wanted to improve water quality in Lake Winnipesaukee or in Melvin River. Here's a project that would work.
My understanding is it can be sort of a roadmap going forward of areas to
The bigger
address.
thing it does is a build-out analysis. So it looks at what lands would currently be attractive for development. And then it says this particular area could be a problem. So the planning board could be alerted to that, and if somebody ever applies for, or actually work a little differently, if somebody applies for a development, then the planning board could look at this build-out analysis and say, oh, that was flagged as a potential source of soil pollution or something like that. And then they could ask the developer to take that into consideration and kind of build it in their drainage plan, with the idea that it's a lot easier to solve problems in a planning process than it is later after it's discovered.
Yeah.
Everything's done.
It just seems that, the wetland permits part of a development is meaningless, really. Although anyone who's ever done a subdivision has to go through that process. But the minute it goes into private hands, the minute a landowner or a homeowner owns a piece, they can do whatever they want. I mean, I don't see any, so I'm wondering whether this wetland, or the watershed is gonna have more muscle than the wetlands permit process, because it, I mean, I look at right up next to my property.
It's not muscle, it's opportunity. If you feel that this is a problem
Mhm.
that's worth solving, the fact that wetlands permit doesn't handle everything it needs to be handled. The town could adopt an ordinance, or, you know, ask the people to adopt an ordinance that would protect situations like that. An example is Wolfboro, 2 years ago, adopted an ordinance for stormwater management. I wouldn't recommend that ordinance myself. I think it's, you know, it requires, when you develop certain number of feet, then you have to have this kind of a plan, you have to hire this kind of an engineer. I think that kind of regulation is burdensome. But there are other ways of writing a regulation like that to require some higher level of planning or some higher level of protection.
Yeah.
And
I just don't see DES as being effective, and obviously they're not unfunded. So, you know, why that exercise is even there is beyond me. So whether or not having a watershed plan is going to change any of that dynamic, it would be interesting to see. I mean, that
I postulate to people every day that our economy in this area, and which includes Tuftonboro, is based on our lakes.
yeah.
And there's other conservation issues about dealing with rural lists and rural views and things like that, but our lakes are really our bread and butter. And if it turns into a sewer, you know, water runs downhill, and everything that we dump on our lawns or comes out of our septic systems goes downhill with it, and it winds up in a lake, and that's where it sits there. We have, in Winnipesaukee, we're blessed with a lake that has a lot of absorption capability because it's so large and so deep. There are a lot of lakes in New Hampshire today that are suffering severe pollution problems. And everybody that lives around it, everybody that comes and recreates there is subject to that.
So are our neighboring towns doing the same watershed plans, or are we the only one?
Yes. Right now, there are plans starting with Laconia and moving around the northern side of the lake. Multipro is just finishing their plan, and they'll have a rollout of that plan sometime in December. And I plan on alerting everybody when that happens, if we want to go over and...
Those communities have already invented the wheel.
And through the same granting process, and Lake Wentworth has done one through using their own resources and a grant. And Wolfboro would like to do one. It's a very complex, and they've already got Wentworth done. In our case, we already have Muir Lake done, and that will be incorporated in our plan. This will not result in regulations. It won't result in any enforcement. It'll result in, it's opportunity for us to protect our economic base. If we want to use it that way, it's only cost us $15,000 and a lot of volunteer time. If we don't want to use it, it'll collect dust.
Yeah.
If nothing else, it'll be a reference material when something's going to happen in Tuftonboro and people want to see whether it's going to affect water quality. That reference material will be there. It'll be relatively inexpensive to update it over the years because it'll be a good base to build on for the future. There'll always be a need to do a little updating. For example, Wolfboro's RIB, which is another thing that the Conservation Commission has been working on. You know, as that technology develops, it might change how we look at the 19-mile brook portion of our watershed.
Right.
Which was on my list of things that we do. We worked with Parks and Rec on a number of things. We did an activity at Old Home Days. All of our members have attended one or another workshops on conservation issues, and we've also attended workshops on watershed protection. That's kind of all the things we've been working on. We have good attendance at our meeting. Everybody works hard when we have something that needs to be done. So I think it's a pretty good group.
Excellent. You recruited well, sir.
There's basically two items in our budget that are different and somewhat expanded. One of them is our administrative assistant, and that anticipates two, well, there's the COLA, and there's a step increase involved, but there's also activity to complete the master plan. And we anticipate participating in two grant requests to help finance more activity in the Great Meadow, and possibly some deed research. And then the other one is hiring Rick Vanderpool to write two pretty large grant requests for that activity. Looking at experience of other towns with other projects and interviewing Rick, we're confident that this is actually almost more like a loan, that he can include the cost of doing any kind of this grant writing work into the grant itself.
Yeah.
So it would come back if the grant was approved.
As grant plus.
Yeah. It's what?
Grant plus.
Yeah.
To get back the fees that it costs to create the grant.
So where are you including the work, what line are you including the work that you anticipate Rick doing?
It's in acquisitions and monitoring.
Okay. And you said this is relative to the Great Meadow?
Yeah. We still have about $2,000 in that category for that line item for this year, and Rick has to complete some work on some studies he was doing on rear plants to that helps a lot in competing for the grant, so if you have rare stuff. And also we can score points for grant applications by getting adjacent landowners to participate in like an easement, a donated easement. And he thinks there's some good prospects. He's been talking to some of these landowners for almost 15 years. I don't know whether you know that, but the Conservation Commission, and I don't know a lot about this because I wasn't here then, but the Conservation Commission was very active in trying to get the Great Meadow project going back in around 2000. And then for some reason the activity just kind of died out until 3 or 4 years ago. And Rick Vanderpool has kind of been involved with the landowners over that time period. He's very well respected in the state, and the landowner would love to have him come tell them what's on their land, and what kind of things you find. So he thinks he might be able to leverage a couple of opportunities there. So that he'd be working on that until the end of the year. If there's anything he hasn't completed by the end of the year, we'll probably be asking to roll that money over into next year to complete it. The other one that I often get asked about is water monitoring, which is the Lay Lakes program. We generally get billed by UNH, right, almost the last week or so in the fiscal year. So that money doesn't get spent until the last minute, but that's probably one of the more accurate line items we have. We added a little money to the 19-mile brook category, where we always kept a little something as a place marker. We kind of like to set up a monitoring station there, which would mean a little higher bill from UNH for testing and the acquisition of a little bit of equipment for a volunteer if we can find one. We're thinking we think we have a pretty good location on a town-owned land where the parking lot is at 19 Mile Bay. Up in the back is access to the 19 Mile Brook. It would be a good place to catch some water samples that aren't affected by the wetlands, aren't affected by any backwash from the lake, but it's also, this is what the water looks like before it enters the lake, as far as any.
So that's going to increase the water testing line item that you have?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Well, except we put it in the category of 19 Mile Brook, which is, the reason we want to do it is because of Wolfboro's rapid infiltration basin.
Right.
Focuses the effort.
We made contact with the U.S. Geological Survey, which has done special water testing in New Hampshire and around the country regarding some of the new pollutants that are added to wastewater, like personal care products, like medications.
Suntan lotion.
Yeah. So, and these are things that are not within state required testing for municipal sewerage. And basically what happens on the RIB is they inject it up in the hill, and it's supposed to go through a sand filter before it comes out in the watershed somewhere. As you know from the lawsuit, their engineering firm didn't do a proper geological analysis to determine that indeed the water would come out on the hillside and go directly into 19 Mile Brook.
Right.
Wolfboro does a great job of pre-treating that sewage to take out a lot of the green pollutants, nitrates, phosphorus, so that the water actually meets the standard before it actually goes into the sand filter. It meets the standard for injecting in soil. It doesn't. There is no standard for dumping directly into the creek or into the stream. So that's what their problem is that they're trying to solve. And we've been involved in that all the way. Dave Ford's very cooperative. Lets us know when they're doing something and puts on a little tour. We go up and look at it. And we review some of the data. But this is a brand new area of monitoring personal care products and medications, or pharmaceuticals is the term they use. So there's a possibility, actually U.S. Geological Survey thinks that they can get a grant to do this. If they can, then Wolfboro would be required to put a match in, which I think is probably the more difficult thing to get approved. And I don't know whether that's going to wind up going, that it can all evolve for this year's budget or not. I know everybody's working on it.
So looking at your at the worksheet here, in the miscellaneous line, we have a negative expense for 2017.
Just to got a cash rebate.
So, yeah, except cash rebates go into the general fund, they don't go back into the line. How do we end up with a negative in there, do you know?
We rarely spend that line. It's the one we think of is, if we need some flexibility somewhere. You never know what the opportunity is gonna be. For the coming year, you can only guess.
All right,
So,
so,
I guess we tend to overfund that one.
I understand that, but we have a negative expense in there in 2017, which says that we didn't spend any money, we injected money there, and that's what I don't understand.
Oh, I see, yeah, all right. Yeah,
So, the way these things are set up, there should not be a negative number anyplace.
yeah.
Unless it was an accounting error.
Yeah.
I don't think I was aware of this when we put this year's budget together. I don't recall discussing it.
Oh, sorry, you.
Hmm?
I'm sorry.
The miscellaneous line, all right, 330. 2017 expended negative $336.
Do you want me to ask Diane? Or?
Well, we probably ought to figure it out at some point.
When I put together the budget in August, I had July figures to work with, and at that point, we had $500 budgeted, and we had only spent $19.26.
Okay, and so now we've gone from spending $20 to
Yeah.
the
I
other way.
think there was some money that was encumbered. There was a contract that some money was encumbered,
Yeah,
so that there was, what we budgeted 500, but there also was some money left over that was encumbered.
well, I understand that, but you still,
Yeah.
the way these things work, you don't end up with a negative number.
Right.
I can't answer the question.
Yeah, okay, I'm just raising the concern, but you think that 500's a, all right. Let me just jump up to the postage line. You spent $100 this year, and you're looking to budget 500 again, and looking back over the last several years, some years you've spent money, 2 years ago you spent over 600, but what is it that you use postage for, and that would suggest that 500 is a good number to keep in there?
It's more than postage, it includes supplies.
Okay.
And I believe, I don't know, I think it's another one of those where we've got to be giving us some flexibility because we don't know.
You have to notify the abutters for the two properties potentially being purchased in the
Yeah.
watershed. There's some certification, certified mail fees there, right?
Yeah,
I know there was a couple years ago with the other two that were purchased.
we printed notices for the well water testing, but I believe we filled that underwater well water testing.
Because it was 2015, you sent out the notices to the two properties that we purchased. Now, the family was from Wolfboro.
Yeah.
Well, you can research that and get back to us, right?
Yeah.
What's the total budget that you're looking for? Exclusive of the legal, because we don't have the legal in your budget. Do I have it?
You should have this in your folder. The 20,000.
$20,580.
It's behind that one, behind the solid.
That's up 2,000 from last year.
Yeah, there. Okay.
Up about 2,500 from last year.
And that's all in monitoring. And just as a conversation, is there some reason why you lumped all the legals together a couple of years ago?
I'm thinking of the 17 years I was on the budget committee. They kind of insisted that it all be under legal. And
Well, I appreciate that you want all the legal bills under legal, but there's line items for conservation legal
Yep.
and that's breaking down
The one thing that as they expanded the town report is they did a program budget, so people could understand any of the costs connected with a particular department are listed there. So people didn't have to thumb through the town report to find out where mowing was or electricity or things like that.
One item I don't know how it was charged is, I worked with Rick on purchase agreement for the two properties we're currently negotiating for. And so I don't know, I'm not told when bills come in. And,
You don't approve them before they get paid?
yes, I do. Yeah, I know what line items is, but I have not seen that one, so I don't know whether
Whether it's hit yet?
it's been paid or not. Whether, just because he's the town attorney, whether somebody's
Well,
gonna ask me about it or not.
The reason I brought it up is we've got a budget, the legal page, which has legal planning, legal ZBA, and legal conservation. So we have the ability to break these things apart. I just wonder why you decided not to do that. Because right now, ZBA is showing no cost on their, line, but they had a lawsuit this year. And so what happens is it all gets lumped into the selectmen and it runs up an enormous legal bill for whatever non-UNA reason they want. And in reality,
The last time we
Conservation
with Rick
Commission.
Sager, we paid for it, but I don't remember.
yeah, it didn't get put on the legal conservation.
And he asked me how, and I told him the bill of the Conservation Commission.
Right. And I'm sure in our accounting, it's taken care of, but it's not reflected in
Yeah.
I did talk to Diane like 2 months ago, because it frustrates me, the categories we have, they don't necessarily fit what we're doing. And I thought it was us, or previous Conservation Commission managers or town, whoever was doing Diane's work, it kind of set the standard of these are the ones we use. But when I talked to Diane, I didn't realize that these are required by the state. These are the categories we have to work with. These budget lines with these descriptions.
Well, we can add to that. We just have to have these.
We looked through the categories and couldn't find things that fit better.
There's some things that are half sheep and half dog. For example, Leanne is excellent at doing a lot of the legal work with property boundaries and titles and whatnot, rather than us hire a lawyer. So it comes out of her pay.
But that's one of the ones I talked to Diane about. I said it would be better, it would be a lot easier for me to say how we were spending our money if I charged her time for the different kinds of project we work on. But she said, because she's a town employee, she has to be in that category. So I really have to break that item down. I don't have my notes in this, but we did discuss this, about how Leanne was gonna be spending her time, and then, how that would turn out. But those are that, and acquisitions and monitoring, which is primarily Rick Vanderpool. Those are our big items.
Right.
That's where the majority of our budget is.
And in acquisition and monitoring, you anticipate you will spend the full amount this year, correct?
Yes, if we don't spend it, we'll be carrying it over because it's an ongoing project.
So you'll come to us and ask us to encumber those funds. And then that,
It's not an ongoing thing? I mean, don't we just annually budget acquisitions and monitoring?
we do, right.
So it isn't-
So if there's active work that is going on, not just ongoing, but at that point that we haven't paid for yet, then we can encumber the funds. But if it's just part of the normal course of business, it has to be work that's billable on. I mean, we can't say, well, we know he's going to do it next year, so we're going to roll this money over. That's not how that works. There has to be something.
There is an accounting procedure.
There has to be something that we can tie it to, not
Yeah.
that, oh, we budgeted it and we know we'll spend it eventually, so we'll keep rolling it. So as we encumber it,
Yeah,
it has to be against specific work.
we 2 years ago, we had Rick Vanderpool outline all the things that he could be doing for us on the Great Meadow project. And he made various estimates. We actually pay him by the hour. So that's what we've been basing it on. And then we say, okay, we're ready to move ahead on this part of the project. And it's still based on the estimate that he gave us. So,
Right.
so right now, he's working on the rear plant study, and he's working on talking to landowners. And
So it would be good to understand how much of that stuff he's actually going to get done this year, whether he bills us for it or not, so that we can set that money aside.
and I told him that too.
Yeah. So, maybe we can have another conversation.
Yeah.
Because if the work isn't done this year, or isn't under an active, I mean, we're getting this finished up, then that money just goes back to the general fund and we have to work against next year's item.
Right. Got a cramp in my leg. Sorry.
It's all that manual labor, Chip.
It is, I have a lot of staging.
Couple things while he's reviewing. If you need to encumber some funds, you'll document that and get back to us. And you also have, at some point, a job performance review that needs to be completed before merit increase goes out. I know that it's just a reminder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually, I had it scheduled, and Nan's former husband passed away.
Last month, yeah.
Yeah, and that was, it was right during when I was gonna do it. And I'm having my shoulder joint replaced in a week or two. So I'm really struggling to get all the physical things done that I have to get done. I normally do through the whole fall and winter.
Yes.
So I don't know whether I'm going to get to it in the next.
It's on your bucket list.
It'll be before the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
I have nothing else. Do you have anything else, Bill?
I do not, no?
All right, I'll research that negative number. And I'll try to stay on the top of the other stuff.
Yeah. It's, and I guess in general, do you get Now, one of the things that Diane provided us with is the last 5 years of expense. Does she give you that when you get ready to?
No, I didn't have that.
All right. And I think,
I have it now, though.
oh, okay. I was gonna say, we
I
ought
got
to
it
make,
this
we
morning.
ought to make sure that as people go to start putting their budgets together, that they have the 5-year look back, because
That's certainly helpful.
that's helpful in identifying, yes, we have an increasing trend, or we're steady, or, it's all over the place.
Right.
On individual line items, $500 this year, should we put 500 in next year? Do we want to reduce it by 100? Particularly those things that are what I would call nominal. I mean, we know we're going to have some expense. You've identified a couple of areas where we're going to have a bump up, and you have some things tied to it. This is why. Some of those other things that have sort of been long-standing, we got 500 here, and we've been carrying 500 here, and we're spending a little bit,
Yeah.
might be appropriate to just say, all right, we'll put 400 in this year, recognizing that as we go forward, we know where we're spending money and where we need more to do the job correctly that we're trying to do. And some of these other ones, we gotta have some money there, but a nickel here, a nickel there, and pretty soon you're talking about real money. And what we're trying to do is be as accurate in reflecting what the need is going to be as we can, and not just, we'll keep that the same, and maybe we'll use it, maybe we won't.
Because you've doubled, excuse me, in 3 years. And part of the issue that I can see is, do we actually have an administrative assistant need of 10 hours a week? I mean, I don't know, Steve, but
It varies.
because the amount that we're paying for the administrative assistant has more than doubled.
I monitor her time report, but it's not like I'm here working on a job.
No, and that's one of the challenges, and I don't, but
I basically don't see the results until probably a month later.
right,
Depending on the project, but
yeah.
it's a challenging thing.
And you've got some big projects going on, but in 2015, you spent $5,887 on an administrative assistant, and now you're asking for $9,000. So is that because of the watershed study, or is it because of something else that's going on that requires more of her time?
We went down the list where we basically talked hours, and we went down the list of what we've been doing last year and then what we're planning to do in the next year, and that's the way it came out.
So the hours here is a compilation of task-related time.
I don't have that with me, but my recollection is that the increases were primarily in the master plan, which is now in a wrap-up, or should be in a wrap-up phase. I don't know where planning board is with it.
Well, we're getting
I
close.
I have her time sheet for this week, and she breaks it down to planning board, master plan, conservation, and there's also another account, the Mirror Lake Watershed, that she does a few hours in the course of the year, and she keeps it all separate, and that's reviewed by the supervisors each week.
So how many hours is she looking at? Oh, that was a week?
This was last week.
Okay, so conservation last week, how much was?
Was 8.5 hours. That included a meeting,
Yeah,
and it included the projects that she
Right
was
at the
assigned.
minutes, I had some other smaller tasks for her to do, and the other thing she does is when we have a conference coming up, she signs us up and she coordinates the billing for it. And we have a conference, the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions is coming up in November, I know a couple of people have notified her that they want to go, so I don't know whether that time, but until I talk to her again,
Yeah.
I can't tell you where those 8 hours went.
But it does, you know, I know when we meet once a month, all these things have been done and accurately,
Yeah.
and when you're doing things like boundary adjustments and things like that, it's pretty technical.
The other item that on her time that went up for next year, you know, for a budget request, is working on these 2 parcels that,
For easement.
well, it actually is, there's 4 projects involved that we didn't have last year, 2 possible purchases, and that could evaporate. That could evaporate tomorrow. It's a guess, but if we're successful, there's quite a bit of mailing and things that have to go on, recording deeds, stuff like that. And then the other 2 of these, 2 donated easements that we hope to bring forward,
Yeah.
there'll be a lot of work on that. So, you know, I have to try to anticipate that. I think it was 2 years ago, out of 5,000 that we anticipated, we only spent like 4,000, or it's actually something less than that.
3,800.
3,800.
You know, you have to guess, but
Yeah.
the one thing we know is that if we don't ask for it, we're not gonna get it. And you hate to see an opportunity, you know, to do a good conservation thing go away because we didn't budget enough funds for it. And we don't try, you know, if something isn't working out, we don't try to figure out a way to spend the money some other way. You know, we just let it go
Take a
back.
step back.
I think the first time I saw the 5-year thing was maybe the budget committee last year. And I didn't want to say publicly that I was surprised, but I was surprised. I didn't know it was available, I think. I don't think I had used it the previous year.
Well, you weren't chairman a few
But
years
to tell you the
ago.
truth, I forgot about that when I was working on this year's budget. Or next year's budget.
Do we want to tentatively approve this, or what is the board's wishes?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to look at all of them. I mean, it's a good trend and it's a bad trend. It's a good trend if we're getting a lot more work out of it. It's a bad trend if we're just spending a lot more money, because we have doubled that budget in 2 years. So I think we need to have a little closer look. I mean, Steve's defended it admirably,
Yes.
and it could be that we need to take a look at how we treat the administrative assistant, or how that employee's budgeted.
Yep.
That's a big item on his budget, but not.
You know, in a larger town, it would be an administrator.
Yeah.
Right.
Who would be supervising that person, and know a lot about what they do hour to hour every day. But it's, and, I'm on about 5 or 6 other commissions and committees that were, you know,
And it-
I'm pretty.
Well,
Would it be more effective if it were a full-time employee being overseen by our administrative office, so that more work got done more efficiently, and we could probably cap this growth that's going on in that particular line?
So we're spending more on the administrative assistant, all right? We have more irons in the fire that she's working on. The overall budget is up substantially over several years ago, but there are things that you're working on today that are costing money that you anticipate continuing and expanding going forward as a reason for why that is in there. So it's, in my view, it's important that as we go forward, that we
balance.
that we say, okay, this is a purposeful increase here, not just, it's sort of going along because time's going along, but we're increasing this budget because we want to, as a town, we want to do more things in this area.
There's a list of accomplishments and activities that I went through.
Yeah, no,
I'd say 3 years ago, we weren't doing half of that stuff.
Yeah.
4 years ago, we were hardly doing any of it. So, there's a lot.
Your commission is
a lot
very
going on.
engaged today, and I think the budget that you presented suggests that you anticipate that that's going to continue.
Yeah, I don't think really, I mean, we're talking $5,000 on a total town budget.
Yeah.
Is that, it's sort of like arguing about what brand of pens to buy, but I think it's important that we focus on the proactive nature of our current conservation commission. I think
Yep,
that's
absolutely.
absolutely important.
Yeah. And certainly, I would be interested in, as you look at the time that she's spending and that you're budgeting, looking at that breakdown, okay? So we're at about 10 hours a week in 2018, which is a little more than she's spent. It's not the same every week, on average, okay? And that's targeting this much time for this much time for this much time. Recognizing that some of that may not happen if some of these projects don't come to fruition. But still, it's, I think it's helpful and instructive to have a
Right, I'm just
look
not
at that
certain,
blueprint.
we need to, just conversation here.
Right.
Whether we can actually burden Steve with that record keeping, or whether we really need to bring her in-house so we can have somebody else keeping track of her time. I mean, I don't know that there's any, I mean, you're on the planning board, you have kind of an idea, hopefully, of what time commitment that takes for her. I mean, have we created a full-time employee, which we have, she has 3 different bosses or 4 different bosses.
Right.
Yeah.
I can tell you that when I first joined the commission, we didn't have an assistant. We did our own notes, and it was like, I think there were people who didn't come to meetings because they were afraid they might get stuck
Draw
in
the
the
short
minute.
straw.
And then, more recently, I talked to a couple of the key members of the commission who, work hard on a lot of things. And I said, so what if we just go back to doing it ourselves? I mean, heads turned the other way, and it was like, I'm not doing it. And these are people who are already working hard on the project. It is. I know I personally wouldn't do it because of my hearing loss issue. I don't hear a lot of what goes on. I don't hear, and sometimes I misconstrue what people are saying in meetings, and I have to be corrected. But it's a big burden on volunteers to do that.
Yeah.
So there is always, in some groups I'm in, there are people who are willing because, like Land Bank, they kind of pass it around between 3 guys that are, it doesn't seem to bother them to do it. We don't have anybody on our commission like that right now. They all hate it.
No, and I need to be perfectly honest, I wouldn't do this job if we didn't have administrative assistants. It just isn't worth it.
Exactly.
It just drives me crazy.
We bumped into the same thing with the budget committee. You go to the bathroom and you're elected secretary 2 years in a row. And when we had stipends and whatnot, the budget committee was the first one to say, we're not taking the stipends, please hire a professional to take the minutes so we can focus on what we were elected
But
to
it's,
do. And it works.
And it's the additional stuff that you might not think of. It's like the conference we just went to. Somebody's got to call up, somebody's got to book a, pay for the tickets and give you the dates and remind you.
Yeah, that's another big one. Before Leanne, when I went to conferences, I had to make my own reservations, and I don't know how many times I screwed it up. I get here and they say, well, we don't have your name.
Yeah.
And then you gotta get a receipt, you gotta bring it back, and 6 months later you get compensated.
I will move approval of the conservation budget.
I'll
In a
second.
total amount of $20,580 for 2018.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 3-0. Again, Steve, thank you for your efforts and your
Thank
commission's
you.
efforts.
This group is very supportive of us, and everybody knows it.
Well, it's a nice town to...
It's conditions.
Sir, good luck with your shoulder and getting your firewood in. We are all struggling with that.
How about you? I'm 2 years ahead, so that,
Oh, good.
I'll come by your house and be on
pulling boats and docks and moving stuff around.
They're just
Well,
there.
I'll look forward to hearing from you when we meet in a couple of weeks.
Well, I know some things I need to sharpen up on now.
But you're having budget, or you're having surgery pretty soon, so,
Yeah, 23rd.
okay, so you won't be here for the 24th meeting, that's for sure.
I won't feel like it anyway.
We'll see you in November
I'm
then.
supposed to get out the next day, but
Okay.
I'm supposed to spend a lot of time with my recliner for a few days.
Good luck for the surgery. Yes,
Okay.
good luck, take care. We'll talk soon.
Okay, thanks.
I think I'll make it her parents. What a nice gentleman.
Yep.
You knew him, obviously.
I did, yep.
Do I know you, sir?
Yes. Acting weak.
Mr. Gallagher.
While we're waiting for him to sit, why do I need to know what a data universal numbering system is?
Oh, you,
That, the question came up at the meeting
You
on
asked what a
Monday about
DUNS was.
DUNS.
Oh, really?
So Adam
this
gave
is just a
it-
definition?
That's the
Adam
definition.
provided that to you, yeah.
Adam's right on it.
Yeah. You asked the question, he provided the answer.
yep.
Clay, you know everybody here. right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't you begin, sir?
Ducks in order here. Okay. Basically, the package I presented shows all of the background data and information. I don't know if you have the packet that has the up arrows and down arrows.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the overall budget with the exception of facility maintenance, facility electric, and facility heat.
That is someplace else.
That's in a separate place. So the page here is just the single budget line item summary. And what I did was the 2017 budget, and then on the left-hand side, I said whether we're requesting the same amount of money. There's a dash up, there's an up arrow, down, there's a down arrow. And the 2018 proposed is on the right-hand side. And for each budget line, there's a number. Obviously, the first major area of that budget is on page 2, which is the labor portion of the budget. And I've listed the matrix where on the left-hand side you have position that's current grade and step, the hours per week, hours per year, additional hours that are added. And the only change is in the additional hours added, I added some more hours for the per diem, the 3 per diem employees, because we have 3, there's more hours to fill in for vacation time. As guys get more senior, you get more vacation time, so I've had to add a few more hours in for that. And then the column for grand total hours, self-explanatory. What was appropriated in 2017 was $131,508. The old hourly rate, the new hourly rate is with a raise of 2% and a COLA of 1.2% built into the chart. So the total amount was 3.2%. And everybody, I have the performance reports that we can discuss.
Is
But
that, does that reflect a step? Is it one of the-
it's one step up for everybody. Everybody on the facility this year has gone up a minimum of one grade level in our training with the state. We've all gone up one grade level, and Kerry Long has actually gone up 2 grade levels.
He's taken a lot
He's
of
volunteered.
additional responsibility.
He has volunteered.
He's also been the taxi to make sure he takes 2 people with him.
Right, and Barry has jumped on board as well, because Rob and I are both at the top of the grade levels now. Barry wants to join in that group and has become motivated to go to the trainings and get that extra grade level. And the per diem guys have jumped right on board, Kerry and Rob, Bob Dean have joined right on board. So, and Kerry has also volunteered to do a lot of the training. I showed you the training folders, which he did. So basically everybody went up a one step level in their grade. Now, of interest, this piques me at the cap of the salary range. The way, at least I understand it when I've come from other organizations, you have a starting range and an ending range in the job description that you have. And I assume that that's on the matrix that we have.
Right.
That's on that same grade. Then the maximum step is 15, and that's the maximum wherever you enter. When you get to the end of that row, or then you have maxed out on your salary. So this is the last year, unless I get a job change or a responsibility change, and redo the job description or have more taskings, then I'm capped at that amount of money. Raise-wise, I will still get COLA, but I wouldn't get any more.
No step increases.
No step increases. And after doing all the figuring, the 2018 new hourly wage is listed in that column. And the last column, 2018 proposed compensation, you have the actual figure amount after calculating it all out, and the total is 136,172. That's a 3.5% increase over 2017, and the reason it's a little bit higher is because I added some extra hours for the per diem guys. Okay, so and underneath the additional hours, I put that in there. The budget committee likes this because right down to the bottom under additional hours, I listed all the things that go into those additional hours. It's like when we go down to NR training for a day, that's 6 people, 10-hour duty day. So you got 60 hours of pay, and then you got mileage, and then you got the fee for going to the conference. So it's can be a significant number.
Yep. Training is significant.
So that takes care of the labor lines on the front, and that's the reason you got the up arrows for them. The next page is the building maintenance, and right now I have on the 2018 proposed, I've decreased the amount on the transfer station maintenance line by $8,000. And that's because we had in that line $8,000 for the painting from last year. We had all the buildings repainted, with the exception of the clock stuff. Right now, if you add the building maintenance line, that last page, the labor lines, and all the individual budget lines, you come up with, the budget is up $9,014. However, it's decreased by $8,000 from the building maintenance, so we're only up $1,014 or 0.002% of what we appropriated last year. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. So if the proposed 2018 budget goes as I proposed there, with slight increases on the tires, on the safety equipment, on MSW, CD, and plastic disposal, then if we take those three factors, put them together, you have plus up $9,000, but minus $8,000 from the paving, so you're only up $1,000. So that is basically a 0.002% increase. That's with the raises, that's with everything, because we
Your revenue stream stayed static, or is that up?
the revenue stream is up right now, but so is the amount of construction debris, and it's above what we were at this point last year. So there are going to be, this is a snapshot from preparing this before I left for vacation to put in. There obviously will be a couple of changes coming. We can add them in whenever you feel it's appropriate to add them in. And I can tell you the two of the changes which will happen that I know are going to happen, I don't know exactly how much, is the landfill monitoring.
That's right.
Because of that, the state, you sent you approved the letter to be sent to DES that all wine produced from Stantec. It looks like DES went along with that. All wines, Stantec has written us back and said that there's going to have to be an increase in the fee next year's budget, because they have to do some work now. If the state agrees and they're going to do the work, they're going to do some work in November, but it won't be billed until 2018. So
It takes them a while to go through the testing
Right,
process.
exactly. So,
So do we know how much the work that they're going to be doing?
well, as of right now, the Stantec, we had put in $9,000.
Right.
Okay, and I think it's going to be in the neighborhood of 12.
And
Where's my paper? Oh, here it is. I'm doing a damn W here. Wait a minute.
part of it is a one-time expense, correct?
Exactly, it's a one-time deal for 2018, and it's got to do with the new, the Stantec monitoring. I believe it was 12,600.
Go right out.
Yeah, I think it was 12,600.
Is that monitor?
That's where to do that plastics, the PFAS, whatever it is.
And do you have a figure on that? 12,000?
12,000, I believe it's 12,600 total.
So here's a thought, all right? Some of that work they're going to be doing this year, right?
Right.
So.
Well, he can't get us the bill before next year. So we've already closed the books on this year before that work is going to be tabulated up. Let's say they take the test in the end of November.
Mhm.
It'll be probably mid-February before we would get a bill. And he can't press any faster because it goes all over the place, and then they got to compile all of the. I worked very hard with him to get
Get it on a schedule.
on a calendar year schedule, and he apologized profusely. Yeah, $12,600.
So that closure monitoring needs to go from 9,000 to 12,600,
Correct.
right?
And
Okay.
I don't know if you, I guess, have you guys signed that letter to go back out that approves?
Yep, it's all
We
set.
did,
Yep.
yes.
All right, so, then, yes, I would say add that in the audit.
So it's a test, it's not equipment.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And it's numerous different locations. I think they're gonna test the well there, they're gonna test a couple other
It
places
articulates it in the paperwork.
in the paperwork, yeah.
Okay. It is what it is.
Right.
then
And he
drop-
apologized profusely, and and I sent him an email back, saying, yeah, I can understand this, and I can agree with it, but I just want to confirm that we will reduce the budget back to the normal amount after 2018, and he said, yes. But he said in his original letter, that and I read the work for this project will be billed no later than December 21st, 2018, and will be back on the calendar year, so as to be completed within the town's calendar year fiscal cycle. So this will be the only exception, and we'll go back in 2019, should be back to
And
normal.
will we have to do this testing again?
No, I think it's,
5 years
there's a
down?
time frame, but once every 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Okay.
The advantage to him is obviously he speaks DES real well
Lives in town.
and has kept us,
That's the key thing, he speaks DES.
he's kept us in compliance.
Cool.
So we're gonna change that line to
12.6,
12.6, which will change.
everything by $3,600.
Right.
So now you're $4,614.
Right.
And we don't have heat and lights yet, but it looks as though.
No, the heat and the lights will be the same.
Yeah, so it should be the same.
Okay.
And we're doing the internet connectivity on a
Well,
warrant article?
Yes, that was the next thing I was gonna bring up was, did you brief about everything?
Oh, go ahead,
We
give me the
had
good news.
We had a meeting with,
Mike Duggan.
Mike Dugan from Spectrum, and we basically had a set price after Karen helped and Lloyd helped and all the work and back and forth over numerous years. We had the work down to $11,261, I believe it was, for connectivity to, which to everybody appears to be like way too much money. And we kept, working on it. And we had the meeting Tuesday in here. Lloyd and I met with him. We gave all of our rationale and justification and showed him why we needed the connectivity, and it would be a good thing for Spectrum, it would be a good thing for the town, and it'd be a win-win situation all the way around. And after probably 30 minutes of discussion, he presented a proposed contract for us to sign, which waived $5,000 of the fee. So he waived basically $5,000, so it'll cost $6,261.
261.
Now, I went to the CIP committee the next day, the next night, and because in and out it's well below $10,000. It's not a CIP issue, which they were grateful for. And I said, we have a couple different options for how we could put it in. We went over the option of adding cable and phone together. And that was also with a monthly rate of $79 was the contract, which was a sticking point for us because they wanted to put us on a long-term $600 a month or something. And so he was presented the contract with $6,261
$61.
and a monthly rate of $79. And I said, well, how about if we go cable and phone? And he said, well, the cable will come down $10, be $69 a month, and we'll add $20 on for the phone. So it would be $89, which is $45 cheaper than what we're getting for Fairpoint right now. So that's a win for us. And the same thing if we added video onto it and went with the full bundle, there would be a reduction in the rate, and it would cost some for the video capability. What that allows us would be, if we did that bundle, it would allow us to do a lot of our training right there. And we could do webinars, we could do, a lot more with that triple bundle.
So that's you're gonna take,
So we could,
telephone would be involved?
well, I can't take it out of the budget
Right,
until it's actually connected. Now, there's at least a 90-day lead time for them to it's for pole permits. That's part of the cost, is not necessarily just stringing the wire, but they gotta do pole permit process because other people own the poles. It's about a 90-day window. So he is going to write in the contract that if we approve the contract now, that it will not be connected, there will be no bills, no fees until 2018 in January.
January
so
2nd.
the monthly charges are what?
For the just the cable itself, $79.
Yeah,
Cable and phone would be basically $89.
yeah.
That's what he said. And he didn't give a number for the cable, phone, and video. He's going to send us, and he's going to send Karen, 2 contracts, one for the cable and phone, and the other for the cable, phone, and video.
Yeah.
So we can pick whichever one at the time. And
So your budget has $1,200 in telephone,
correct.
right? And if my numbers are correct, that would go down to $840 about per month
Right.
for that line item.
What I would, yes, something like that, if it was just a cable.
Right.
If it
Cable
was
and phone.
cable and phone, whatever the numbers. I put out.
840.
I had 915.
Well, $90 a month
Yeah,
times 12 months, $840,
all right.
right?
Whatever that works out, yeah.
Right.
What I would recommend,
No, that's wrong.
How much a month?
90,
No,
90 times 12.
yep, no, it's,
918,
Yeah,
yeah,
1,000.
so
yeah,
it's $1,000.
right.
So what I was thinking is if you leave your telephone line alone on your budget, and also leave your government buildings maintenance line alone. We're gonna spend $6,000 or $7,000 on this installation.
Mhm.
I would put
Just
it,
leave that line right where it is.
Yep,
You painted last year, this year you
Wait a
put
minute.
internet in.
okay, that's what I was gonna recommend. I was gonna recommend put the cost of the connectivity into the building maintenance line.
Right, government buildings
Right,
line.
And then,
Rename it?
no.
no.
No, it's
No.
transfer station building maintenance.
Yeah.
Maintenance, because all you're doing is updating a service.
Right,
So,
Right.
and then we can work whichever contract we choose, we can work
Right.
the change to that budget line
Yep.
for Fairpoint and call it, and then change the name.
Which
to
line is that?
That's telephone, which is 43243034, about halfway down.
Yes?
We just changed that to Spectrum.
Yeah, or interweb or whatever you call it.
Well, I mean, we wouldn't have to do it right away.
You leave it as, you leave it as telephone.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what the description is, but it will include, today that includes your internet and your telephone.
correct,
It would still include your internet and your telephone. It would
correct.
just be, the cost would be a little bit less.
Right.
Yeah.
And the one-time expense of 6,000.
Going to
where does
the
that
maintenance.
That would go under,
Government
the last one,
Transfer station maintenance.
419405630.
Yeah.
show? Where are you on this sheet here?
That's the third page.
We're on this, on the government building.
So we're gonna add, what was that, 6,000?
Well, so here's another question with respect to building maintenance. You had a bump last year for the painting. We didn't do anything to the Quonset hut, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
That's the next thing down the road.
okay, so,
What was your most recent quote on the painting?
I think it was 3,000 or 3,200, something like that.
for the Quonset hut.
Can you get another one? 'Cause
I'm
that's-
trying, I've been trying to get that since you asked.
Okay.
That's why I don't have the specific number. But
I like your idea of just leaving that transportation maintenance line as it was last year.
Right.
That provides some money to,
So leave it at
to leave it at 10.5, right?
Okay.
That provides the money to do the cable installation, and also provides some money to do this painting. May not be the total amount in
Okay.
there, but we know that painting needs to get done. And while it's great for us overall to say, look, we're bringing the whole budget to 0.2% different from last year, it's also important to do some catch-up on building maintenance. And
Right.
when we get caught up, to make sure that we
stay caught.
stay caught up. I mean, we have a responsibility to make sure that the assets that belong to the town are maintained and passed along to people that follow us in a serviceable condition. And in some of these areas where we are behind the power curve because we haven't done stuff, and we need to make sure that we get there.
I know when we first talked about this prior to your folks' arrival, it was mentioned that we get about $12,000 in fees through the cable company, and we wanted to reinvest some of that money originally, so.
And Clay can, in his,
Wisdom.
his, anyway,
Tactful.
right, he can create a schedule to see whether or not the video conferencing is an actual money saver. Because we're paying
Right.
for mileage, we're paying for whatever. I
Oh,
don't have to
absolutely.
pay for your video conferencing, but,
Right,
and does that reduce your part-time help?
right. And that doesn't need to be, that portion of it doesn't need to be done right away.
No, no,
You know, we can always add that later on.
Yep.
But it may
So-
be, that that's a good idea.
Well,
And that's
yeah,
positive.
exactly.
Any other questions for him? I have a couple.
I want to come back to C&D.
Okay.
You budgeted a very slight increase from 2017. For the last 2, maybe 3 years, C&D quantity and cost has been going up.
Right, we significantly spiked it last year. We significantly added more. I think we can stay, it, again, it's a guess, but I got 3 months left. I think we can stay in that ballpark.
Well, my concern is, when you go over on that cost,
So then I have to come off all the lines.
then you gotta find money that you've budgeted pretty tightly other places
Right.
to eat into. And
I don't have that many of them
right,
left.
right. I think you do a good job of providing a fair estimate of what all these costs are going to be. So we all know if something you have no control over, like MSW disposal or C&D disposal, goes up because the tipping fee goes up or because the quantity goes up, we have to pay that bill.
Right.
We can't say, oh, it's discretionary. And the,
Well, I put them up $4,000.
put what up, 4,000?
The CD, plastic, and MSW. Those three lines?
I'm looking at CD, you're up $1,500 from last year, from this year.
C&D?
C&D's
Oh,
up
okay.
from
Oh, sorry.
75,000 to 76.5.
MSW.
Okay,
Yeah.
MSW's up $2,000. MSW's been pretty predictable though.
Right. But when I'm
You don't
figuring-
know where the tipping fee's gonna go, but,
Well, they, yes, I do. They
Okay.
went up 2%.
okay,
So what I'm trying to do is add that 2% in.
Mhm.
And, you know, the way the percentages are working out right now, if we go, I mean, it should be right about that number.
Mhm.
So, but are you wanting to add more?
Just suggesting that if you under budget, then you end up having to squeeze something that you've already put in
Right.
someplace else that you need to do and put it
Right.
off till the following year, which
Right.
I don't think is good stewardship of the
No.
operation.
Right.
So I'm just asking you to look at that number again and not greatly inflate it, but
Right.
is that enough to cover it? Because we've run into a situation the last couple of
Last
years
year,
where
yeah,
it
right.
hasn't been enough to cover it.
Right.
And it's great to come in with a budget that looks great in the beginning, but when you bust it down the road and then you have to scramble to squeeze things
Right.
in, that's not so good.
The other thing is, I look at another department. So far this year, we're up on building projects and building permits. When I read the business trade papers right there, the economy is inching up a little bit
Right.
better. Next year, it looks like it's gonna, and it's compounding.
Mhm.
You know, I would have no problem, for sake of argument, of adding $2,000 to C&D. It gives you some flexibility. There's something else going on there
Right.
too.
Yeah,
That facility up there doesn't need this stuff hanging around, overflowing. You don't do it,
Right.
but, you know, we need to make sure that you continue to be successful, so.
Yeah, in reality, if we don't use it, if it doesn't go up and it stays about right, if the plastic goes over or the MSW goes over, then that little bit will help offset that.
And you already.
So the way I look at it is I bundle those three together, because that's my waste management contract. And I look at the bottom line for those three added together.
But you-
And another $2,000 would help.
And you sent us some paperwork from NRA that, you know, with trade in China.
Right.
You anticipate, they're telling you, things are changing.
Yeah, it's gonna be,
But
But you know, when
let's
I
just look at it
Yep.
like an actuarial look at it.
Yep.
You're 2/3 of the way through the year, or 3/4 of the way through the year,
Yep.
and you've only spent 54% of the budget.
well, we're a month behind on waste management. Because remember, those bills come a month later.
Okay, but you're still.
So I was looking at 66%, but I was at 57.
You're at
So-
54, yeah.
So-
54%.
Yeah, by the 10th of this
You
month.
should have, I mean, if you just extrapolate these numbers forward, you only need 18 grand and you got 33. So I appreciate that you're behind the ball, or behind the billing cycle with
Right.
waste management. But I guess I'm not as worried as some that we're gonna run over on that line.
No.
It just doesn't look like the trend is in that direction, unless you're gonna bring in a $20,000 bill this month.
Yeah, I hope not.
Probably not.
Is there another alternative as we get along in the budget cycle? If for some reason we're hit December 31st, we can always re-examine the budget, correct? It's not cast in
We
stone.
can. All right, you're looking at C and D, is that what you,
Yeah,
all right. So
Yeah.
through 8 months, we spent $6,000 a month, right?
1, 2, 3,
Pretty
4,
much,
5,
yeah.
6, 7,
Hmm?
8.
pretty much.
Yep,
So 8 months, we spent 64.4%
right.
of the C and D budget,
So,
which is 1.53% below the target.
yep,
Okay, I don't know where we're coming up 10% different.
Yeah, here's the latest C and D line,
Yeah,
right? This one here,
yeah,
and that's the percentage,
okay. So you've actually spent 48,000,
right?
not
Yeah.
33.
Yeah.
And that's as of,
Oh, you're looking at the
Oh, yeah,
year-to-date
there's
expense
more.
of, yeah, that's a problem with using this.
if
One
we look
thing,
at, this is the latest, this is the one we're working off of, 48,000
right,
as the year-to-date. So it
Okay.
tracks toward the 75.
Yeah,
Right.
that's one, yeah.
And that
And
puts
the
us-
only reason I'm asking is
Right.
we've had some years where
Exactly.
we've gone over, I mean, you know.
Well, look at the plastic. We're at 69% on plastic.
Right,
So the plastic is probably going to go over $500, let's say.
yeah.
but there's a difference here.
Right,
Plastic, $5,500 is your line item. C and D, $76,000. So there's a
right.
more than
Exponential
tenfold
difference.
magnitude difference there.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go over by $300 on plastic, it's not,
Correct.
it doesn't have the same impact as $2,000 on C and D.
Yeah,
So again, you have your finger on the pulse of this thing, and you can take what we spent through 8 months and project it out and say it'll stay within the budget, but does your activity go up a little bit at this time of year, toward the end of the year, or does it
right.
drop off a little bit? You know, where's the tipping fees gonna go next year, all of that kind of stuff. I'm
you
just
know,
raising the issue, you're presenting a budget, and I don't want you to put too little in that line
Right.
and have to end up saying, well, now I can't do the oil changes on these things until January of the following year
Right,
because I don't
because-
have the money for it.
Correct. Yeah, and if you look, even a bigger nut is MSW, the next line down.
Right,
95,000, and we're at almost 70%.
yep,
So if that goes over,
right. So
Then
maybe
you need
90,
that-
maybe 97
And
is.
that stuff legally can only sit in your hopper so many days.
7 days,
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe $2,000 on the C and D line would be, would help.
What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm not opposed to putting a little extra money on those two lines, you know. I just wanna, and I think.
The
we need to be
discretion,
careful.
the discretionary part of that is not what you do. The discretionary part is what people do, bringing stuff in.
Right.
You bring more stuff and throw it in the MSW, okay? You throw more bottles and cans and all that into the regular MSW hopper, and our cost goes up. If people are a little more attentive, it can keep that line under control. But whatever it is, you gather it, we ship it out, we pay for it. Unlike, you know, do I have a guy for an extra hour here or an hour there?
Right.
So those are things that we have, we can have some influence on, but we have no direct control on.
Correct.
So, all set?
Yeah, I mean, The trending on MSW is pretty constant, so if you added a couple $1,000, that's about what we went up over last year. The C&D goes exploded,
Yeah, right, yeah.
so, I mean, you're up $20,000 over.
So how about if we would add 1,500 onto that,
1,500 onto what?
onto the CD?
CD?
So
Make it
that was
78,000?
Make it 78,000.
All right. You want to do anything on MSW?
80, 86, 88, 90, 93, and we're currently at 95.
That basically is the
97,
key,
So that's the trend you're working.
key operation up there.
97 is a good number, I think, because that's about where it's trending, it's
Mhm.
going.
Yes.
97, right?
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll leave that one alone.
yeah.
So we add 1,500 to the CD line,
Yep.
and we add 3,600 to the closure monitor line.
Right.
And everything else stays the same.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Okay. And then what I'll do is, this page is good. I'll reproduce for the budget committee, I'll reproduce this page and this front page so that we have the current. So the arrows, you won't. That's a problem with using one of these old things, then the year-to-date stuff isn't correct. It gives a bad interpretation.
Well, that's
Sorry
part of
about
the
that.
problem. You're not gonna know the year-to-date until December 31st.
Exactly. So, but before it goes to the budget committee, I'll have it.
I have a couple of issues.
Okay.
It's Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday.
First of all, we're in the process of inquiring about mowing. The side banks haven't been mowed for a
Okay.
number of years and whatnot, but that's not in your budget, is it?
No.
Okay, but we're working on that along with some other projects in town. There's about
Right.
6 of them now.
Right.
Number 2 is, I've had a conversation with you. You're very kind, but what happens is, we have projects in town, for example, citizens pull out the docks and the floating debris down.
Right.
It's only a truckload, but guess where it goes?
Construction.
We had 5 people brush out the benches beyond the church there. Where does the brush go?
Yeah.
We find a refrigerator on the side of the road. Where does it go? Guess what?
Well, the state guys bring us stuff that they get off the sides of the road, and we have Jim guys bring us stuff, and then when we do projects, like we
Shingles
we did
on the roof.
with the shingles on the roof, I got a whole truckload. When we redid the Melvin Wharf, the lumber from that we got, and that, well, over time that adds up. Maybe that's 2 or 2 C&D containers, maybe it's 3 for the year. The swap shop does the same thing. That stuff comes, and over a period of time,
But that's dollars that's not in your budget.
it's dollars that we're not collecting revenue for.
And I don't know what my board members think about it, but
Right.
We have a run over
What-
budget.
What's your suggestion?
that we put,
Maybe a line in for town disposal.
at least $500 to $1,000. That stuff adds up.
It's not a
But-
profit center.
Here's the issue, okay? Any money that he collects goes into the general fund. It doesn't go into offsetting any of this stuff.
Right.
So if we put money someplace else in the budget,
The only thing that affects it would be a cost for me. It would be that you guys or the budget committee looking at me like I've had a cost overrun.
Right. And
That's the
Well,
only effect.
but you anecdotally
Right.
can come back and talk about some of these things.
Right.
How exactly do we want to measure this stuff? I mean, we can get very, very precise and detailed in additional charts of accounts and additional measurement,
Mhm.
but it takes time and effort on your part and everybody's part to stay
That's a
on top
guess.
of it.
That's a
And
guess.
it, right, right. And some of the things we're talking about doing, like putting scales in for C&D and that sort of thing, is going to take a lot of the approximation out of it.
Right.
But for town projects and for stuff that gets dumped alongside the road that gets brought to the transfer station, the alternative is it stays in the ditch alongside the road. That's not good.
Right.
So it's just part of what as a town we do. And
Well, another example, and I can live with where we are right now. It would be different, like when we did the Old Woods project, the Old Woods Road cleanup, that there was a separate budget line that went to. And that helps tremendously. If I had that added in, that'd be another, that was probably in the neighborhood of 20 tons, 25 tons of material.
And he did us a favor by
So-
getting the tires and the
Right.
TVs out of there at
So,
no cost.
that, I mean, it worked out well. As long as, if there's a major project like that, it can be tagged to even, I don't, whatever budget line we pick, that would help.
But we spent $360,000 to take care of our trash.
Right.
I mean, that's the bottom line.
yeah,
And it
Right.
includes all of it.
All of it.
I mean, it's.
All of it except for health.
all right, so now, can we move on to just a
Yep.
couple of pieces of housekeeping here?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm ready to move approval of the budget with the detail increase of $1,500 on the C&D line, an additional $3,600 on the closure monitoring, for a grant total of $365,622.
365, 622.
If my math is correct, that's $5,100 more than what was
Okay.
presented. And do we want to do the building separately, or do we want to do it all as one motion?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Okay.
With the building
The
separate.
motion's been made and seconded on line 4324, solid waste. Any further discussion?
Can you repeat that amount, please?
365,622,
Thank you.
which should be the number that was in here plus $5,100.
Right.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes 3-0.
Yep.
All right, now, to move on to the
General government.
the buildings budget,
Mhm.
I move that we,
This is 4194, correct?
yeah, 4194, that we approve in the amount of $18,000, which is $8,000 more than you presented, but the same as what was in the 2017 budget.
And that
That
money
that
includes cable
includes-
connectivity
And,
tape from
and
Quonset.
maintenance on the Quonset hut, right?
Okay.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Thank you, Carl.
And I will redo those charts and make sure they're accurate at whatever time it goes forward.
It's not on our agenda for Wednesday, but it will be the next meeting.
We missed the cutoff.
And I also will ask to get bids for that preservative coating on the bridge.
Yes. Has nothing to do with, you just know the contractor.
Yeah.
We do not have a meeting on the 6th, on the 9th. It's a holiday. Do we need to have a work session on the 13th to do a couple more budgets?
That'd be my recommendation.
Okay, Karen,
Mm-hmm.
you've been in touch with the library, correct?
Yes.
And I know that there are individuals personally that can't come in certain days, but I think, to speak for the selectmen, we'd like to move that one along if we could, so I don't want to play the demands, but do I represent?
Well, we'll be meeting the following Monday, which is the 16th.
They can't, Christie can't
So we
make it
can
that
do it
day.
either day.
Now, on the 16th is a 9 o'clock meeting. The library cannot come in on the Monday.
they'd rather a Friday, and I said the next time you have a Friday workshop, maybe they could be scheduled.
Well, is it fair to have a workshop the Friday, the 13th at 9 o'clock as a target date? Is that good for the selectmen?
It is, but I have 1 hour that morning, and then I have to disappear, so we'll have to make it a tight, I mean,
That moves things along, doesn't it?
right?
So we just do one. That's
Yes.
Yeah,
Now, on the
Let's
16th,
do it at 8:30. Let's
Yeah.
just-
8:30 is even better, and then we can squeeze two in an
Oh, we
hour.
got all the other things to
Yeah.
do as well.
Yeah,
now, as far as the other budgets, does it make sense to, and I'll just pick one out, police or fire. We have our normal meeting at 9 o'clock, and at 10 o'clock, we're gonna take a break and do somebody's budget. You know, I'm totally flexible, but I just wanna post it. Have you talked to any of those people?
No.
Okay. The concern I have is that we have basically 2 regular meetings a month for the next 3 months, but we have a lot to do, and there are other committees that are waiting for us. And I realize you need lead time to get
Well, I
through
have
the
it,
process.
yeah, as long as we stay on target to the schedule I created, we would be fine with the meetings we have. And I do just,
we just
please
have to,
keep in
we
mind
have
that
to be a
taking
little
me.
flexible, that's all.
No, absolutely, and I don't mind. I just, like, if you could please keep in mind that the meetings takes me away from my work and then the minutes. And just trying if we can kind of make it, and then budget committee meetings and minutes.
There's
and-
no cost involved in what you do.
Yeah, right?
Just so you know.
But yeah, it's definitely not bad to be ahead of the game, but just please keep that in mind.
Well-
It pulls me away from stuff.
The big thing is the library. And is the library going to be prepared to talk about the warrant article, or is that a whole?
I don't know that we're
other
gonna do
deal?
warrant, let's get the general
Yeah,
budget.
yeah,
done.
let's-
They actually wanted to know if that's what you, they actually asked, so.
Yeah.
No, I think let's do the general budget, and how much,
Do
we
the
don't have any
stages.
real input other than advisory on the library's budget. That's,
Right.
that's from library trustees to the budget committee.
Right, so let's do
So
that Friday.
it ought to be a very short meeting,
Yeah.
you know?
And then we'll
Okay.
do one budget every Friday or whatever you wanna do. But I-
Yep.
You know, staying until noon on Monday isn't a good deal
No.
for Chip,
No?
just so you know.
Well, if you're out of here before that, I'm out of here before that.
Right,
so.
right.
But I want to work with all you people in moving these things along.
And I think, you know, if we, do we have an evening meeting this month?
No. You want an evening meeting?
I'm just saying,
You can't hang rafters at night, I
I
understand.
can't hang rafters
Yeah.
at night,
Yeah.
but would it work better for your schedule or anybody else's schedule, or just my schedule? And
No,
is there a way to do
depending
that?
on- Okay.
I'm flexible on, you're
Let's
talking
talk
Mondays,
next
right?
Friday,
Yeah,
see how it goes.
yeah.
See what, how
Eight-
much budget. we've got.
8:30
8:30
next
next
Friday,
Friday.
library, boom.
And we'll see how contentious the budget committee is on
Yeah.
Wednesday, so I can report back to you on how that's gonna do.
All right.
And
Do
it's
you,
not,
do you have any idea when are we going from the budget committee?
I have to have a calendar in front of me. I think there's another meeting on the 24th, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just,
Are we having,
Just so I have the
I mean,
lead on it.
I realize it's just a chat here, but are we having the department heads come in when we talk about their budget initially?
We do.
Okay.
Okay.
So okay, it's not me presenting his budget and then him coming in and defending it.
No.
Okay.
Is there any other business? Go ahead.
the library wanted to know if you wanted all the trustees here or just Christine Gordon. She thought Christine Gordon would be appropriate if you weren't talking about the warrant articles and
I think
everything, but.
that's
fine. We
fine.
don't, yeah, I don't think we need to.
He made the comment, it's rather perfunctory, really.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
So we'll shoot for 8:30 on
Okay.
13th.
And we do have non-public today, correct?
Yep.
Do we need non-public today?
We don't need
From what we
public
talked
input.
about, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have just one question
Go ahead.
before I leave, and I can't think of a better place, I guess, to ask it than here. One of the things that came up in Budget Committee last year was, should a member of the Budget Committee who is also on another board or committee be allowed to vote on that budget? For instance, last year, John
Sure.
Libby opted not to vote on Parks and Rec because he's on that board. This year, we have Gordon as a trustee of the library who's also on the committee. And he initially said, well, I won't vote on the budget for the library or for a warrant. but that's a duty of a budget committee member. So my question is,
Well, my opinion is that as a member of the budget committee, he ought to vote on it. But here's a thought, and that is ask Buckley at HMA for their opinion on whether there might be
and I did
procedure.
submit that at the workshop, but he didn't.
It's not like,
answer
it would be like Clay voting on a budget. You know,
Yeah.
he's getting paid, so now we're voting on his pay. Gordon's a volunteer.
Right.
There's no benefit to him
Mhm.
voting for that budget other than.
And I look at
citing
it, you know, you're on the budget committee, but you also represent the board of selectmen. But I expect
Right.
you to vote as a budget committee member regardless.
And we're gonna vote on the executive end of this budget, and so are you. And I'm gonna vote at the budget committee on the executive lines, even though I'm getting paid to do it. A
Mhm.
very small amount of money.
Okay,
So,
When I was on the budget committee, we had the same thing. There were people who were on, then you could be up on 3 different committees. The town was so small. And we researched it, and if you're elected to a position, you have a responsibility to vote your conscience, and I can't stop you. However, what we did in our committee is, if there was a challenge or if there was a question, it was raised before the issue. Every year that I was on the budget committee, I was a member of the fire department. And I've been the same here. Hey, folks, you know, I happen to be a firefighter. Is it appropriate for me to step back or not say anything? And it changes from year to year. So we handled that issue. What is the board's,
and I could certainly shoot an email out and get legal opinion on that. But then one of the things I've run into in the past is, what is my duty as chair? And I've been kind of called on the carpet in regards to when I contact or do something. So I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing, and that if you think people should vote, they shouldn't, or should an email maybe come from Karen, who I hate to overburden.
No, that's no
these
problem.
things,
That's no big
or-
deal. No.
or just make it
I can do that.
informative. I mean, you're not making a
Fine.
decision as the chairman to contact somebody. You're contacting them so you get information so the board can decide what they want to do.
Okay,
I mean, it's not your job to decide for them.
okay.
you know, as far as people making issues, it's been my experience that people are going to make issues no matter what. I can remember a few years ago, someone said, well, Carolyn Sundquist votes 3 times, that's undemocratic. What do you mean? She votes at town meeting, she votes on the budget committee, and she votes as a selectman. And I'm going,
Vote early, vote often.
Yeah.
All right, let's,
Well,
Wrap it
that's
up.
it for me then, thanks.
is there a,
See you next week.
is there a motion to go
can't wait.
into,
Oh,
is there a motion to go into non-public in which RSA is?
thank you, Karen.
What do we do?
Actually, I'm glad you said that,
Is-
because I meant to do that before. I apologize. Let me go grab my sheet.
All right, she's gonna grab the
Sorry
sheet
about that.
on, yeah, what the,
I mean, I'll make a motion that we go into non-public to review a 91A request, but I have no idea what it was that we're reviewing.
yeah,
Okay.
And I don't mind saying it in public what we're reviewing,
well,
but what are we reviewing?
we are reviewing attorney invoices for redaction.
Okay, so
So whatever that,
that's legal.
Yep.
yep, that particular item
I
is,
thought we did that already.
that was
This
for
is-
an earlier request. This is for a new request. These are new,
A new and improved request.
Is that motion seconded?
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote. Wood, yes.
Marcus, yes.
I'll be yes.
Okay. At
Thank you, sir.
10:55, we're going into non-public.
Thank you.